right, welcome to explAInED. Today on the podcast, we have the president of Champlain College, Alex Hernandez, not Mr. President. Alex, we usually start the podcast by asking folks to tell us a little bit about themselves and their journey, but also what AI means to them. So take it away.
Sure. I grew up in Central California. My father was a farm worker. My mom was born in the Philippines during World War II. And so I had kind of people who were trying to come and create opportunity for themselves on both sides of my family. And for us, education was the path forward. And I didn't know anyone in business growing up, but I knew I wanted to be an educator. So for my first job out of college, I said, I better go figure out what is this world that I'd be sending students out to. And so my first job was for a bank on Wall Street. And I had an incredible experience. I learned a lot. And fast forward a few years, I said, if I don't kind of leave this now, I'm never going to leave. And so I quit my job and I became a high school math teacher in South LA. So I spent a huge chunk of my career in K-12 education, like you all. And a few years ago, as I was working for National Education Foundation, thinking about how do we send more low-income students, more first-generation students to complete a four-year degree and to have career opportunities after that degree, I got a call from the University of Virginia, and they said, would you consider coming to run our College of Continuing and Professional Education? And from my perspective at that time, College of Continuing Education were really the front lines of thinking, how do you create opportunity, for people who want better jobs, better lives through education. And so I was very fortunate to get that job as the dean and had an incredible experience there. And then was introduced to Champlain College. And it was this incredible college, as you know, Michael, I've had your daughter as a student, that is really committed to getting students ready. And for me, as I think about my journey, that's really what my whole life has been about. Like, how do you just get students ready for the world? And Champlain has just been this long time innovator about thinking about what are these enduring aspects of an education that will serve you throughout your life, and what are those career skills you're going to need to hit the ground running. And so that's really kind of what drew me to Champlain College, what drew me to Vermont. I feel so blessed to be here. And then just to answer your question around what artificial intelligence means to me. Before becoming a high school math teacher, I actually worked in venture capital for the Walt Disney Company. And my job was to really go out and find new technologies that were going to change the way we thought about entertainment. And at the time, I thought, and this was in 2001, there was a lot of peer-to-peer music. The internet was taking off, the consumer internet. And I thought, what's happening in entertainment at some point, 50 years in the future, will impact education. And so part of my thinking of going to Disney was thinking through and learning how technology might reshape education. So I had an incredible experience there. And fast forward to today, I really see AI as a technology that is so powerful. We're not even scratching the surface of understanding it. It's moving so fast that even the people who work in the field of AI are having a hard time keeping up with it. And as I think about preparing our students so they can be ready, I know that giving them the skills that they need as they graduate and make their way into the world, those AI skills, all the things around it, the human skills, are going to be so critical for our students.
Now, one of the things that Sean and Renee might not know that I know is that even as the president, you still teach classes.
I do.
You still connect with students. How, as you've rolled out AI, and we'll talk about what's going on at Champlain in a bit, but how have a wide breadth of student population? You have gamers, you have cybersecurity folks, you have business students, and you have all the creatives and the in-between. When you interact with students, how are you seeing different responses and different interactions with AI, or how are you thinking about that with your student population?
Yeah, it's a great question. Some of the most intelligent conversations I've had about AI have been with our students, and they've run the gamut of some students say, I'm afraid to use AI because I'm fearful I'll be cheating. Other students will say, I want to launch a startup in the AI space and it's moving really fast. Like, how do I get in the game? Other students will say, one of the most powerful conversations I had was with a junior who said, we have a choice. We can either offload all the work to AI, in which case, I don't even know why we bothered coming to college, because we won't learn how to think, we won't learn how to do anything. Or we can use AI as a force multiplier of our skills to amplify what we can do. And this student saying, I really think our students need to think about AI as a force multiplier. And that conversation really shaped the way I thought about AI early on in this conversation. And if you look at a lot of the conversation now of co-intelligence, of partial autonomy, what does it mean for humans to drive AI? This idea of AI as a force multiplier of our skills is really powerful and important, and we're figuring out what this means as a society and as an education system, I would argue.
Alex, we have seen in the news that Champlain College has partnered with Anthropic, yes, and you're bringing Claude to your campus. What are your hopes for this partnership? I guess you can't really think long-term because who knows with as fast as AI is changing, but what are your general hopes for this partnership?
Yeah. So I think it started with two pretty simple notions. I think one, I believe, as I said earlier, our students are going to need a set of AI skills as they graduate, and regardless of what major they're in. And so the question is, working back from that, what do we have to do as an institution to help our students get there, knowing that early on I was pretty resistant, honestly, to doing anything around AI, because what was true one week was going to be different the next week. I don't even know how you program against that. And I got to a point, I think this year, as I saw, as I started learning about AI agents and the idea that there are going to be AI agents doing autonomous work in organizations and working side by side with our students and our graduates. And so at that point, I knew that we needed to kind of begin this journey, and it really is a journey. And so the two things that come to mind for me is, one, right now, the best way to learn about AI is to use AI. And so we were one of Anthropic's first higher education partners, and we opened up access to everyone on our campus. So faculty, staff, students on campus, online. I wanted everyone to have access. And that's really, really important because, as you know, AI software is costly. It's hard. You can get free versions that have very limited, but to really get an understanding and access to a powerful tool, we have to open up access. So the first thing we did is just open up access so that people who wanted to use AI could start just using it and playing around with it and figuring out what it's about and understanding it. So that's one. I think the second thing is we need to build our capacity to learn about AI, our institutional capacity. And that means it can't just be one or two people who are experts, but everyone has an opportunity to investigate in a way that kind of builds their skills, builds the capacity, build the conversations. And so those were really the two starting points. And what I hope what comes out of this is some really interesting learnings and projects and pieces of work at different parts of our institution. So the Argosy Foundation recently sponsored a set of artificial intelligence fellowships for our faculty. So this year we're going to have 10 faculty members who are using AI in the classroom. and they apply to be faculty fellows. And the only thing that we ask is they share their learnings with their colleagues and with the community. And so this journey of just kind of learning, I think, is really important. I think really highlighting the pockets of innovation, the really interesting work to help just spur for further creativity and opportunity and possibility. That's really the hope and dream at this point.
So you mentioned something, Alex, that I think we can directly relate to, and that's bringing staff on board. And I imagine, I'm speculating that you are facing some of the same questions around AI ethics that we are in public education, where a primary initial response, gut response by educators is, concerns about cheating, concerns about the cognitive lift going away, all of those things. But that fellowship is a great example of where, you're finding ways to empower your educators to really take hold of that ethical conversation. What other avenues have you experienced on the staff side of things where you're rolling out this to your entire campus?
Yeah, it's still early for us. So we made this announcement in April and our students graduated in May. And so we had kind of a limited period in that first year. So we basically rolled it out to our campus, but we really haven't had the space to have the kind of the broader conversations. But I know this upcoming year, we are going to have broad conversations. I mean, people, students, adults, everyone wants to have these conversations, and people are coming from different points of view. I heard, the other day, what if AI makes a mistake? And I was thinking, absolutely, AI hallucinates. What if humans make a mistake? We make mistakes too. And what do we do in our workplace to ensure that we're producing quality work? And so there's those types of conversations. But what I'm really focused on is just how do we empower students to really think through how AI is going to lift them up, not hurt them educationally. And I really think that's a choice every student's going to have to make. And if you're going to make this investment in your education, you need to hold yourself accountable. We need to hold each other accountable. We need to create opportunities where we're using AI to amplify our skills, to amplify our intelligence, not to take away. And we know that that risk is very real if we let AI do everything for us. So I think there's some really important conversations there. I also think it's continuing to keep students focused on what are the real world applications, opportunities right now? So I'll just give you an example. I have a son who's just finished his sophomore year and is doing an internship. And the college has no idea what he's doing for his internship. And the first thing that he's being asked to do is to start structuring data and doing analytics and thinking about AI tools. And this is a sophomore internship. And so regardless of where our personal feelings and questions are about AI, we need to have the conversation so we can, interrogate those. The world is moving in a place where students are going to be having these experiences. And I believe for them to be ready, we need to help them, give them experiences to navigate this world and succeed in this world that they're walking into.
I work mostly with K-8, and so we're kind of like really scratching the surface as far as using anything like a large language model.
Yeah.
But I found, personally, the concept that you're talking about of like force multiplier, it's very true. Like, I would make training videos before, and now I can make ones that are just so much better, with like, and much more engaging. And what I'm wondering is if you've seen any of that with like your faculty or students at this point, like where you've seen like some kind of tangible improvement with something that someone has done.
We definitely have a faculty member who is building AI tools for his classroom. I haven't spent enough time with him and the tool to kind of know what the outcomes are. I think he's kind of in the middle of the build, but I think it's probably still like early for us in terms of those things. As I think broadly across the K-12 sector. In K-8, I mean, I'd also just say, like, I'm not I would say I'm kind of a techno optimist. I don't think that everything's a nail that we need to hit with the AI hammer, and I also think that AI doesn't really change the way we learn. We learn from tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years of evolution. I mean, there's a few autodidacts walking among us who can go on YouTube and learn anything, but that really isn't the norm for us. Most of us are social learners. Most of us, we learn because we build knowledge that builds on itself. Like this idea that somehow you can find any information on the internet, and so you don't need to learn things. That's actually not how we learn. Learning is like a snowball. Like your ability to take in new knowledge, even if you look it up in Google, or even look it up in AI and make sense of it, is based on your prior knowledge. And so we're still going to need social learning environments. We're still going to need knowledge, and we're still going to need human skills. The power of creativity, communication, relationships. I mean, I think they even might be more important in this future world that we're in. And so I think part of this as educators is balancing their real responsibility to help equip our students with what they need to know about AI, but also, not over-index on it so much that we're not giving them what the broad set of things they're going to need to succeed in this world.
That's a common theme that we're hearing from people that we're talking to about the humanization of things. I wanted to skip back to something that you brought up. I know that because my daughter goes to Champlain, that connecting with the workplace early and often is kind of a lifeblood of Champlain. What, if anything, are you hearing from employers, particularly in Vermont, around skills maybe that they want to see students or interns come in with? Or has there been a shift that you've seen recently with this impact? Because I know that you partner with a lot of tech companies. You have a lot of students connected to the tech world, and we have some industry in Vermont that represents that. So, like, I'm just curious what, if anything, is out there in terms of banter about AI?
I think we've seen employers making a really significant shift towards these human skills that I've been describing even before AI. And one of our big employer partners is New Harbor Security, who we've got a fantastic relationship with. They actually opened up an office on our campus next to our Leahy Center for Cybersecurity. So we do a lot with them. And they just think so much about not just the technical skills, but they recognize that when you're having a really successful day as a 22-year-old securities operations center analyst, your client may be having their worst day. And what does it mean to be in relationship with them, to communicate during a stressful time, to be able to analyze when there's time pressure? There's just so many human skills that students need in order to succeed in their roles, just beyond kind of the technical knowing. And so, we've seen that with New Harbor. We see it across, it's across industries. And I think it's only getting elevated because we know that when technology does more and more, and AI, I would argue, is probably one of the basic examples of where technology can do more and more of the human work. What are those human skills that we really differentiate ourselves with? And I just see employers continuing to understand the importance of that and speaking of that, and actually asking for really explicit training. I think in higher ed, historically, we've kind of done a nudge, nudge and a wink, wink that, we take our classes and there'd be this internship at the job. And somehow in that last mile between the two, the human skills would emerge. And I think that where we probably need to go, and this is where Champlain's going, is a really experience-based education, where in between those two extremes that, in the classroom, you're doing collaboration, you're working in group projects, real world projects, not just simulated things. You're interacting with the outside world. In our Leahy Center, we have students doing work with clients in the world, kind of co-curricularly, and then you go to the internship. So we think all these experiences help develop these skills that students need. And we often hear from employers that Champlain students are different. They bring a set of kind of human skills that they rarely see in 21-year-olds. And it's not because we sprinkle magic fairy dust, because there's no silver bullets in education. But what we do is from the moment with our upside down curriculum, from the moment students set foot on campus, they start engaging in experiences with the real world. They start taking courses in a career-focused major, so that over the course of 4 years, you're getting multiple experiences that help you build those skills. And as we look to the future, we need to double down on that, where every student gets an experience in a learning studio. We just announced co-ops last week, where students can get full-time experience during their college education. And so we're just trying to figure out how do we build more and more of those experiences so students can both apply the technical skills that they're learning, but also develop those human skills so they can hit the ground running when they graduate.
Alex, do you have a thought on the other side of AI is the ethical considerations around AI, bias, environmental impact. Do you have an idea of how to address those topics as you're rolling out AI across your campus?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of interest in what are the sustainability implications for AI, and part of the question is, we knew that what is the carbon footprint of data centers? I mean, these are very compute-heavy technologies. Some data centers were running on potable water in order to cool themselves, and part of it, I think, is just educating ourselves. I mean, this is going to be a journey, but we know that over the last few years, more and more data centers have adopted more sustainable practices. We know that some of the artificial intelligence models are getting more efficient in the way they use power. And so, just as we think about Moore's law for semiconductor processing speed, what is kind of the equivalent for more sustainable practice? And so, we're not going to solve that institutionally. I mean, this is a sector-wide, industry-wide thing. And so part of this is this, this judgment of, do we do nothing until, each one of these concerns are figured out? Or, do we find a way to engage that allows our students to develop some of these skills and at the same time be really conscious of some of the implications around that. And so I think, that's one. I think, two, one of the reasons we felt really good about partnering with Anthropic is, at the end of the day, they think really, really deeply about the ethics of the model and how they train the model, how they test the model. They have this amazing research group that does a lot of work around that. They publish their research. And so, that was certainly a consideration as we thought about how do we, create a partnership that allows us to advance AI in higher education.
I know we're running out of time, but I just had one more thing I wanted to ask about art students. Some of the conversations we've had here with students, where they feel pretty concerned about like art being generated by AI, and I was just wondering what kind of conversations you've had at Champlain about that.
Yeah, we have an incredible creative community here at Champlain. So many students from different art fields, and there's concern for sure around what the impact of AI will be on creative fields. And I think similarly, it reminds me of the impact of the internet on journalism. And I think there's these moments in time where new technologies really change the structure in ways that that sometimes are not great and have real kind of implications. And so I just think that the importance of taking this head on and having conversations and getting into this is really to help people figure that out and explore And, for every one of these, threats and concerns, there's also going to be opportunities that come up. And I want our students to be able to see the opportunities as well as, some of the threats and the concerns. But, it is absolutely true that AI will change how we do our jobs in multiple fields, certainly in creative fields. And I want us to be leaning into understanding how those changes, what those changes are, what are the opportunities, what do we need as leaders to really try to steer in another direction. And I think engaging is the answer.
Well said. Alex, we want to thank you for your time. We know it's valuable. We appreciate the conversation. I had just one last pitch now that, I've got this conversation with you about a potential mascot change. Now, just hear me out here for a moment. I think there's chance to really capitalize on some merchandise and some ideas if we shifted away from the current mascot to maybe something Bigfoot related, Sasquatch. just pitching it out there, very Vermont-y idea. You can sit with it. You don't have to respond right now. Just something to think about.
We'll bring Chauncey to your pitch meeting, and we'll hear you out. We always are open to new ideas here at Champlain College.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the work you do every day.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you.